Today's lesson is about solving inequalities. Yesterday we did it with addition and subtraction. Today we're going to be doing it with multiplication and division. Looking at your notes, we've got the same kind of instructions that we had from yesterday about solving the inequality and graphing the solution. But the new idea that I want us to remember about today, we talked about this just for a little second yesterday. When do I need to flip the sign? Okay, so here's the deal, and I want you to write this down in your red pen for your notes. If the last thing that you do is multiply or divide by a negative number, that is when you must flip the sign. Okay, so I'm going to say it one more time. If the very last thing you do is multiply or divide by a negative number, that is when you must flip the sign. All right, we're going to go ahead and do these just like normal. First things first. Taylor, identify the variable.
X.
What is not allowing x to be alone? Divide by 5. How do I get rid of divide by 5?
Multiply by 5.
Good job. We want to do an inverse operation. And what we do to one side, you must do to the other. So Taylor, what happens on the left side?
Both of the 5s cross out, and you just get x.
Okay, the 5s cross out, I just get x. What is that symbol that you see there?
It's greater than or equal.
So it is less than or equal to. I'm going to drop it down. Now let's look over here. I am multiplying 1 negative times 1 positive, so my answer has to be?
Negative.
Has to be a negative. So what's 3 times 5?
15.
Okay, and then we know that that's a negative 15. Excellent job. Who remembers how to graph it with our 3 points? Let me have Nehemiah. Draw the line. What number goes in the middle?
Negative 15.
Very good. What is one smaller than negative 15?
Negative 16.
Good job. And one bigger?
Negative 14.
Is this open or closed?
Close.
It is a closed circle, okay? Now, if I go back up here, it says all solutions are less than or equal to negative 15. Which direction tells me all solutions are less than?
Left.
Going to the left is correct. Very good. Looking at problem B, what do we notice is different about the variable than problem A?
It's backwards.
It's backwards, okay? We can see that the P is on the right-hand side. We always want our variable to be on the left side. So we're going to go ahead and flip it, all right? So now instead I want this variable to go first, so I'm going to write 2/3 P. Now if you look, this little spot is right here, and then if you notice, the part where it is the greater sign is over there. So you still want this little part to be facing the 2/3 P. So instead, what will my new symbol say?
Less than.
It's going to say less than, okay? Once again, notice the little part is right there, and then the two bigger parts over here are going to be close to your -3. Does everybody understand how we switched the entire problem to make the variable first? Okay, next up, everyone identify the variable. What is not allowing P to be alone?
Multiply by 2/3.
Okay, thank you for saying multiply. Remember, whenever we have a number next to a letter, we are multiplying them together. So technically, in order to get rid of this, I will have to divide by 2/3. But since we don't divide fractions, what method do I have to use? KFC, keep, flip, change, which means I'm going to flip it and multiply by the reciprocal. What's the reciprocal of 2/3? 3/2. Remember, this only happens when you are multiplying a fraction, okay? So if I multiply by 3/2 on the left side, I have to do the same thing on the right. Technically, this could be 3/1. So what happens on the left side, class? It cancels out, okay? I'm just left with P is less than. Now let's go ahead and do our numerators together. What is -3 times +3? -9. And then what is 1 times 2? 2. So my correct answer is -9/2. Okay, that's a fantastic question. You are allowed to keep it as an improper fraction, or you can move it to a mixed number, which would be -4.5. I am okay with you doing it either way, okay? For this case, we're just going to go ahead and keep it as a mixed number. So what goes in the, or an improper fraction, what goes in the middle, class? Negative 9 halves. What is 1 smaller than negative 9 halves? Negative 10 halves. Remember, with negatives, it's like it's backwards. So what would the right side be?
Negative 8 halves.
Negative 8 halves. Once again, as I said, if you wanted this to be a mixed number, that would be fine with me. This would have been negative 4.5. This would have been negative 5. And this would be negative 4. Okay? I do not care if it's a mixed number or an improper fraction. Just the girls, is this an open circle or a closed circle? Open circle, because it is not equal to. And if my answer up here says all solutions are less than negative 9 halves, which direction is less than?
Negative 8 left.
Going to the left is always our less than direction, okay? And then you can double check. This right here looks like a less than, just like our symbol up there is less than. That's the way to double check it. Ayana, n divided by 3 is less than 1. Identify the variable. And what is not allowing n to be alone?
3.
What about the 3?
Oh, sorry,
Divide by 3. How do I get rid of divide by 3? Multiply by 3. And class, what you do to one side, you must do to the other. So on the left side, what happens, Ayana? It crosses out, and tell me what we are left with. N is less than, and what's 1 times 3?
3.
Correct. Go ahead and graph it for me. What number goes in the middle?
3.
A 3. What's to the left?
4.
2. And what's 1 bigger? 4. Is this an open or a closed circle?
Open.
Open circle. And remember, as I look up here, all solutions, remember this n right here is all solutions are less than 3. So which number up there is less than a 3?
2.
The 2, so we're going to go ahead and shade it that way. Remember, this means there's a lot of answers. There's an infinite amount of answers because it's anything that's less than 3 I could plug in there. Okay, I could plug in a negative 50, I could plug in a 0, I could plug in a 1. All right, anything that's less than 3. Haley, is my variable on the left side?
No.
No. Can you tell me how to rewrite it so the variable is on the left side?
N 10 is greater than or equal to negative 1.
You are correct. Okay, now how do I get rid of that divide by 10? Good job, and we're going to go ahead and multiply 10 on both sides. Okay, what happens on the left side, Haley? Okay, because 10 divided by 10 is 1, and I drop down my m. What's my sign? Very good, greater than or equal to, okay? Now we're going to go ahead and go over here. I am multiplying one negative number times one positive number, so my answer will be a negative. And then what is negative 0.5 times 10?
Negative 0.50.
Very good, negative 5. Now, here's what I want you to figure out. Was the very last thing I did, because we multiplied by 10, was the last thing that I did multiply by a negative number?
No.
No. Here's why, and this can get tricky. There was a negative number right there, but I was multiplying by this positive 10, okay? So if the thing you're moving is a negative number and you're multiplying by a number that you moved that's negative, that's when you would flip the symbol. In this case, the last thing I did was I multiplied by that positive 10, so I do not need to flip the symbol, and this is my correct answer. All right, go ahead at this time. I want you guys to draw the graph and graph it on your own. Okay, guys, is this going to be an open circle or closed?
Closed.
It is closed. We know all solutions are greater than negative 5, so which direction is it going?
Right.
It needs to go to the right. That is correct. For the next one, class, 6x is greater than negative 18. Is the variable on the left side? Yes. Madison, what does it mean when a number is right next to a variable? You have to multiply. So how do I get rid of multiply by 6? Divide by 6. Good job. Notice we are dividing by a positive number on both sides. Okay, so 6x divided by 6 equals 1x. I just dropped that x down, and I've got a greater than sign. I'm dividing a negative by a positive, so Madison, my answer is going to be Negative, and what is 18 divided by 6? Negative 3 is correct. Okay, let's go ahead and graph it. Madison, what number goes in the middle? Negative 3, good job. Class, what's 1 smaller than negative 3? And what's 1 bigger? Madison, open or closed circle? It is open. And this tells us right here, all solutions are greater than negative 3. Which number up there is greater than negative 3? Negative 2. So my answer must go to the right because all solutions are greater than negative 3. Who wants to do the next one for me? Nehemiah, go ahead.
2.5 greater than 15.
Excellent, Kay. He tells us that we want to make sure that variable is on the left side of our inequality symbol. How do I get rid of that multiply by 2.5? Divide by 2.5. Okay, be careful. A lot of times people will try to subtract it, but if a number is next to a letter, remember that means we are multiplying. So we're going to go ahead and do that to both sides. What happens on the left side, Nehemiah?
2.5.
These two cancel out, and I'm left with r is greater than what?
6.
6 is correct. Please go ahead and box it in. I want you guys to graph it on your own. As you graphed it, guys, open or closed circle?
Open.
Open because there's no equal sign. And which direction should my arrow go?
Right.
Good job, because all solutions are greater than 6. Going to the right is always going to be my greater than. All right, another example. It's very similar to what we've done. Negative 4x is less than negative 12. What do I need to do to get that x by itself?
Divide by negative 4.
Divide by negative 4, okay? Remember, we are dividing by negative 4 on both sides. This cancels out over here on the left, and I'm left with x is less than, what's negative 12 divided by negative 4? Positive 3. Was the last thing I did divide by a negative on both sides?
Yes.
Yes, look at this. I divided by negative 4 on the left side. I divided by negative 4 on the right side. What was the rule we learned at the beginning that must be done whenever we divide by a negative on both sides?
You have to flip the sign.
I have to flip the symbol, okay? So my x will stay the same, my 3 will stay the same, but this symbol right here, it's not going to be a less than anymore. What's it going to be? A greater than. And now this is your final answer. Once again, that only happens whenever you are dividing by a negative on both sides, okay? So now let's go ahead and I'm going to show you how this makes sense. If we graph it, my numbers are going to be what?
3, 2, and 4.
2, 3, and 4. Open or closed circle?
Open.
Open. Now this is where the thing would be different, okay? So all solutions are greater than 3. Which direction should my arrow go?
Right.
To the right. Notice though, if I had instead taken this answer before we flipped it, let's just look at what it would have been over here. It would have been still the same idea. I would have 2, 3, and 4. You guys don't have to actually write this part down. I just want to kind of show it to you. It would still be an open circle, but with this one, the arrow would have gone to the left, okay? So let's just imagine as I went over here to the left, I eventually would have gotten to 1 and then to a 0. So let's just imagine that I plug in this 0 right here to my original equation. Guys, what's negative 4 times 0? 0. So this would have said 0 is less than negative 12. Is that correct? No, 0 is more than. So notice if we had gone with this without flipping the symbol, it would have not been a correct graph, okay? But instead, if I were to plug in these ones going in this direction, I could plug in and it would have worked out, okay? So the main idea here is just remember, whenever the last thing you do is divide by a negative number on both sides, you must flip the symbol. Okay, here we go on to the next one. Does anyone want to try to do H for me? Nikki.
You put negative y over 2.
Okay, we're going to go ahead because that y is on the wrong side, so we're going to do negative y over 2.
Greater than or equal to
Very good.
negative 0.5.
Not negative 0.5,
Oh wait, I mean 0.5.
just 0.5. Okay, now here's one thing that's a little different. Do you guys see that this negative is out here on the outside of our fraction? We have to attach that to either the numerator or the denominator. It doesn't matter which one you attach it to. However, we want the y to be by itself. So we really don't want to attach it to the y. So what should we probably attach that negative to?
2.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and attach it to that 2. So now instead we've got y divided by negative 2. Okay, because once again, that negative has to attach to either the numerator or denominator. So in this case, we're going to go ahead and attach it to the number so that y can still be by itself. So Nikki, how do I get y by itself now?
You gotta divide by 2.
Okay,
Multiply.
I want to multiply by what?
Negative 2.
Negative 2. All right, if I multiply the left side by negative 2, I've got to be fair and go ahead and multiply the right side also. What happens on the left side to the negative 2's?
They cross out the 2.
Good job, and what am I left with?
Y is greater than or equals to 1.
Okay, now look, I have one positive and one negative. Negative 1. Okay, do I need to flip the symbol?
Yes.
Why do I need to flip the symbol?
Because multiply by a negative.
The last thing I did was multiply by a negative number on both sides. Okay, so that means, what should my final answer be, class?
Y is less than or greater, less than or equal to -1.
Very good. We are just flipping that symbol. So here it was a greater than. Now it has to become a less than because the last thing I did was multiply by a negative number on both sides. All right, I want you guys to graph it on your own. Nikki, what numbers did you get for graphing?
Negative 1, negative 2, and then 0.
Very good. Did you put an open or closed circle?
Closed.
Closed. In which direction did your arrow go?
Left.
To the left. Very good. Then once again, check with your answer. It is going that way. It looks like a less than, and this also looks like a less than. Excellent job, Nikki. Thank you very much. All right, for sake of time today, we are just going to go ahead and move on to problem B. All right, so we're going to go ahead and go on to the second modeling real life problem. It says you earn $7.25 per hour at your summer job. Write and solve an inequality that represents the number of hours you can work to earn enough money to buy a smartphone that costs $725. All right. Does anybody remember what this little thing right here, per hour, what sign do we always use? Add, subtract, multiply, or divide when it's per hour? We are going to multiply. So simply what that means is we're going to take this number and multiply per hour. What would be a good variable for per hour?
X.
Let's do H for hour, okay? So we are going to do $7.25 times H, because it's $7.25 per hour. Now this is what it says. Write and solve an inequality. Inequality means I don't want an equal sign. I want a greater than or a less than, or a greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to sign, okay? Now, what's the amount of money that we're trying to earn up to?
$725.
$725. So let's go ahead and put that down because we know that. Now, could I earn exactly $725? Yes, so let's go ahead and put our equal symbol. Now the next thing, if you could buy it, if you had $725, would you be able to buy it if you had less than $725? No. So you would need this to be your greater than symbol. Okay? Now, is my variable alone? No. How do I get that variable by itself? Divide by $7.25 on both sides. You guys try to do that on your own. All right, so we know the left side cancels out. H is greater than or equal to what, guys?
100.
100. Now listen, this is what it says. Write and solve an equality that represents the number of hours you can work to earn enough money to buy a smartphone that costs $725. You are correct. We need to make sure we've got units attached. Now listen, if your answer comes out like this, I do not want you just to box 100 hours. Okay, it asks you to write an inequality. So you want to go ahead and put in the whole thing, all right? This basically means any answer that is more than 100 hours would be fine. You could work 101 hours. You could work 110 hours. You could work 200 hours, all right? And then you would have enough money. But the least amount you could do is 100 hours. So the correct answer is H is greater than or equal to 100 hours. for number 3, it asks us to write the word sentence as an inequality and then go ahead and solve the inequality. So I want you to think this through with your partner and try to figure out what the answer to this would be. All right, so problem A says the quotient of a number x and negative 3 is at most 12. What does quotient mean? Divide, all right? So that means x divided by negative 3. Then we know is at most 12, so I'm going to put my 12. Here's the next part that's tricky that some people were having a hard time with. At most. If it is at most 12, can it be exactly 12?
No.
Yes. That's just the most it can be. So I know it can be equal to it. Now, can it be more than 12 if it's at least 12? No, it cannot. So your symbol needs to look like this. X divided by negative 3 is less than or equal to 12. Now remember, it also asks us to solve. How do I get rid of that divide by negative 3? Multiply both sides by negative 3. A lot of people I saw that you did this work, but then something happened. Okay, so this means x is less than or equal to, a lot of you guys put negative 4. It is not asking you to divide. Look what it's asking you to do right there. Multiply. What is 12 times negative 3? Negative 36. Then always ask yourself this question. Was the last thing you did multiply or divide by a negative number on both sides? Yes or no, class? Yes, look, I multiplied by negative 3 on both sides. So what do I have to do? I must flip the symbol. Instead of saying less than or equal to, it must say greater than or equal to negative 36. All right, try problem B on your own. All right, here we go. 4 times a number is at least negative 36. How would I write 4 times a number? 4x, 4n, 4c, it could be anything. But when you have the 4 next to the letter, we know that means to multiply. Next up, we know it's going to be at least negative 36. So I'm going to go ahead and write negative 36. If something says it is at least, could it be exactly that number? Yes, it can. So I'm going to put the equal sign. Now, if it says it is at least negative 36, could it be more than negative 36? Yes. So you need the more than or the greater than symbol. Now we're going to go ahead and get that n by itself. How do I do that?
You divide by 4.
Divide by 4 on both sides. Notice I am dividing a positive number on both sides. This cancels out. Was the last thing that I did divide by a negative number on both sides? No, it was not. Okay, so your correct answer is n, or any variable, is greater than or equal to negative 9. Okay, for the next think, pair, share, I want you and your partner to go ahead and do problem A together. All right, for this one, we want to get it by itself, so we're going to go ahead and divide by 12 on both sides. Here's where a lot of people made a mistake. I'm dividing 1 negative by 1 positive, so my answer has to be a negative 2. If you don't have that, go ahead and erase what you and your partner did. And then it did ask us to graph it. So I'm going to go ahead and try to graph it right here. We've got negative 2, negative 3, negative 1. Open or close circle? It is a closed circle, and your arrows should go to the left. All right? Raise your hand if you and your partner got that correct. Excellent. Okay, let's go on. I want you guys to do problem B. Notice as you do it, the variable is on the right side of the inequality symbol. Okay, I saw a lot of fantastic answers. Most of you remembered to go ahead and switch it like this. We want to get that m by itself, so we're multiplying by 8 on both sides. Do I need to flip the symbol? No. When do I flip the symbol? When the last thing you do is multiply or divide both sides by a negative. Open or closed circle, class? It is a closed circle going to the left. All right, final question. Write the word sentence as an inequality and then solve. What does the word product mean? Multiply. So how do we multiply? Okay, remember, I don't want to see negative 5 times y. I don't want to see negative 5 times y like this. How do we write negative 5? Just put them together. Negative 5y is less than 20. How do I get that y by itself? By? Divide by negative 5 on both sides. Do I need to flip the symbol?
Yes.
Why?
Because the last number.
Because you're multiplying by a negative number.
The last thing I did was divide by a negative number on both sides. So we do want to go ahead and flip the symbol.
Wait, did I get that right?
All right, this is tonight's homework for 4.6. Excellent job today.